Well, welcome everybody. I'm Chris Henry with BizSpeed. This is the second part of our webinar series, second webinar in our three-part series on best practices in bulk logistics. I'm happy to have Chris Tuttle as a co-host with me from ORTEC, and we have a few customers and folks that are going to share from a panelist standpoint their experience in data analytics and KPIs. So in terms of the overall agenda, I'll talk about introductions, goals. This is a panel discussion. If you have questions, please ask questions in the chat, and we'll make sure that we get in and answer those either during the panelist discussion, or we have a time for Q&A at the end. And again, this is part two of a three-part series. The first was multi-compartment routing. The second is analytics, which is what this is. And then in June, we'll have one on optimizing driver workflows. So real quick, I mentioned I'm from BizSpeed. Chris, do you want to do a quick introduction on you and a background on ORTEC?
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Chris Tuttle. I'm the director of our customer impact for the Americas. ORTEC is a optimization company within the supply chain. Looking forward to having discussions with the panelists today.
And then from a panelist, I'll go through and have each one of you introduce yourself. Tell us a little about your background and the company overview. I think the last time when we did this, we didn't do as much on the company overview. So if you can give us your company overview and also your role in analytics. So first person, Andy Copland, the Director of Financial Planning and Analysis at Jacobus.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. My background's as a CPA. Having an accounting and auditing background, I think, provides a great foundation for understanding how business works, and then also lays a solid foundation for business analytics. I work for Jacobus Energy, who is one of the largest mobile fueling companies in the country. In my role there, as Chris said, is director of the FP&A team. FP&A stands for Financial Planning and Analysis. And I was hired to create that department. Previously, the company was primarily relying on our monthly financial results to guide our business decision-making. But now we're able to analyze and take actions on things that are happening daily.
Awesome. And then we have Peter Futch, the Director of Distribution Logistics at Airgas.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate the invitation to you and Chris Tuttle as well. My background, I'm Peter Futch. I'm with Airgas. I've been with Airgas for about 10 years, all in distribution, logistics, transportation. Prior to Airgas, I've got about 17 plus years working for several Fortune 500 companies, both in domestic and international distribution logistics. Company overview: Airgas is an Air Liquide company. Airgas was acquired in 2016 by Air Liquide, who is a global organization. We are a manufacturer of cylinder packaged gas in large industries, from atmospheric gases to hard goods, and from a supply chain perspective. My role in the analytics side from a bulk logistics perspective is really driving the 3 to 5 year roadmap from understanding our analytics to understanding our best practices to really driving continuous improvement.
I probably should have asked Andy too. You want to tell us a little about your fleet size and kind of territory that you cover? And then Peter, you can do the same.
Yeah, sure. Sorry. So we have, I would say, going on 300 drivers, 300 trucks that serve mostly the eastern half of the U.S. We have some markets west of the Mississippi, but primarily Midwest and Southeast are our primary market areas.
And Peter, same thing for you, kind of the fleet.
Sure. So fleet, as far as Airgas goes here in the U.S., we are probably, depending on the criteria, Airgas is probably operating the 4th or 5th largest private fleet of straight trucks. We probably have over 5,000 straight trucks, and if you look at tractor trailer combinations, we're probably north of 7,000 across the U.S. We're dispatching across 1,000 locations here in the U.S.
Thanks. And then last but not least, Jeff, the Group Director of Supply Chain at AmeriGas.
Good morning, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Jeff Octor. I have been in supply chain my entire career. So transportation, logistics, network design, routing optimization, obviously, and order generation and the like there. I've been with AmeriGas for the better part of the last 9 years. Prior to that, I was with a copier company, Rico Americas, for 8 years prior to that. Transportation and logistics there as well. I promise not to get too much into paper jams or propane molecules on this and keep it light. Just about AmeriGas a little bit. We're the nation's largest propane provider in the United States. We operate and deliver to customers in all 50 states for their commercial, home heat, and barbecue needs. So shameless plug, Mother's Day is coming up. Grill something nice for family and friends. And we operate over 1,400 routes a day. For the analytics role, we're working really on things ranging from forecasting and order generation to our route build. So we're doing a lot of our performance reporting on the delivery systems and overall operational efficiency of the network.
Thanks. And so ORTEC does routing for all three of you. Jacobus uses us on the mobile, which gets the actuals in. I know for Airgas and AmeriGas, you both have your own internal mobile teams that you use. So obviously we're a bulk logistics company too. And the purpose of this really is for existing customers as well as new prospects to learn what people are doing from a best practices standpoint. So we'll cover real world experiences, also ask you guys about what you would do differently. This will be recorded just as a FYI for everybody. And we'll cover it both from a strategy, a process, and a technology standpoint. So that's the goal. So from a strategy standpoint, Andy, if you want to start, kind of tell us about your analytics environment and what KPIs you track and kind of your overview of how you develop the strategy for your analytics.
Sure, absolutely. So, yeah, our analytics environment is very, very favorable to using data. Our leadership team is, like I said, very amenable to letting our data drive our decisions. So this is the culture that we've been able to develop. Definitely still some shooting from the hip, but this is becoming less and less. So we're more slowly than I'd like transforming into a data-driven logistics company, just like ORTEC. The KPIs that we track, our top three are net revenue per driver hour, delivery wages per gallon delivered, and then travel hours per delivery. So those are our three main metrics that we look at every delivery by every driver. Yes, we look at trends over time, but we're also wanting to serve our customer each and every day as best as we can. So we look at on a daily basis, our managers are looking at their dashboards and attacking problem routes, problem customer deliveries. So how our strategy's changed over the last few years, in a nutshell, it's become much more focused. We used to throw tons of the same metrics to our entire field in fairly elaborate dashboards, but over the past few years, we really made an effort to properly tailor the KPI goals based on the data points that each role within the company controls. So for example, drivers will have different metrics than the managers, than really the operational or back office leaders will have. So tailoring those KPIs to the people that can address them and act on them and control them to a degree, that's been our focus. We've also vastly improved the timeliness and delivery of our KPIs. Dashboard data is available daily to our managers. so that they can take timely action to correct issues or negative trends. Also, we used to push out emails with very large file attachments, much to the chagrin of our IT team. And but now we refresh Power BI dashboards that users go and look at, so we're not pushing anything out. So that's been a huge change in how the data is consumed.
And you guys are a little different in that drivers know what their metrics are and they see, and they, they're paid for performance on that too,
Correct.
which is a little bit unusual, I think, right?
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. I don't know how unusual it is across our industry, but it's been a work in progress over the last several years to change drivers' mindsets to not just getting their hours, to actually being as productive as they can be being as safely productive as they can be during their shift, in order to have a win for the company and a win for the driver. So we try to we do incentivize them based on whether they hit their daily metrics or not.
Peter, I guess that's maybe a good jumping off point for you to talk about how you guys have developed your strategy and what your metrics are, and maybe also whether you've looked at having drivers have exposure to their metrics.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Chris. So at Airgas, our environment really is kind of based on the foundation of, and we've all heard this before, but if you can't measure it, or if you don't measure it, you can't improve it, right? So Airgas is a very decentralized organization with lots of areas of development when it comes to analytics, whether it's at the division level, the region level. But at a corporate level, our goals they really don't change. So it's not really per se a moving target. We get very granular to where we're looking at, to just what Andy said, where they've got driver measurements, we have manager measurements. So, and then we have the higher level, macro level measurements as well. It's tough to say, from a KPI standpoint, because we have KOIs, we have KPIs, what are the vital three? But from a bulk logistics perspective, I would have to say that our equipment in the bulk world is very specialized, as I'm sure other companies are as well, but it's very expensive equipment. So utilization is key for us. One of our top measurements outside of the KOIs, where we're not talking about safety or quality or customer stats, but from a performance standpoint, we're trying to make sure that we're utilizing our equipment. We're trying to make sure that we're getting the maximum turns, whether that's slip seating equipment or whether that's trying to get more hours, more deliveries made, because the equipment is very expensive. So utilization, looking at it in days and time, is a major measurement for us. Again, based on the size of the fleet, as you can imagine, we travel quite a few miles in distance. And so optimization with our stop plan sequence and ORTEC systems, very critical in really, establishing our planned miles and actual miles to make sure that we're mitigating and removing any out of route miles. And then we also, from a driver perspective, different parts of the organization, we do have driver-based pay incentive based on activity work pay, if you will. But we track the time, right? So plan time and actual time, very critical. And I know we talked about three here, but I think from a bulk perspective, what's critical to us is also, I would throw a fourth one in there to say that we need to be tracking our on-time performance. The biggest thing with our bulk operation is we want to make sure that we're not going too early and we're not going too late, right? It's critical that we're mitigating the number of trips and routes and stops. And to do that, we leverage the ORTEC solutions to really understand what's the earliest delivery and what's the latest delivery without running a customer out. And I would say, how's our strategy changed over the last few years? Well, 10 years ago, we were doing things very similar to what Andy said in spreadsheets, really bringing Excel and Access to its knees and trying to share that information over SharePoint sites and just any which way we could. So we've come a long way to the world of big data and data analytics and cloud-based computing platforms. So we have the ability now that we're able to build data models, and we're able to automate that information and provide that information real time with daily updates.
So for your asset utilization, I've seen on the bulk side, are you looking at utilizing all of your tractors and trailers, or is it more making sure that you've fully filled a truck? Like you can put, you got 30% excess capacity that you're using now in the truck.
Yeah, it's really a little bit of both. It's kind of a delicate play there because obviously we're trying to mitigate. We are a private fleet, so and we do outsource. There is some outsourcing that happens, but the majority of what we do is internal insourcing from a driver perspective, equipment perspective, and so it's really a balance. We don't want to put a truck on the road if it's not a requirement or if it's not a need, but we do want to make sure that we're maximizing the capacity of what that asset can do.
Got it. And Jeff, you want to tell us about your environment and also maybe share about what visibility drivers have to the KPIs?
Sure, we'll do. So at AmeriGas, we're really spread out across the United States. We've got a large field operations, lots of managers, drivers out in the field. So the goal of the reporting is really to make sure that we can get information rolled up and then down to that detailed level as well. So from our ERP, we've got a dashboard environment that allows us to perform those tasks of really seeing the monthly, weekly, daily trends of our data and getting that down to the local level so that, like many others, we'll be able to coach and talk with drivers about what trends they're seeing, what obstacles they're facing, and how can we get that back into the root system to make corrections for better performance. Really, the KPIs that we're going after are very similar to most transportation logistics. We're looking at miles and hours and delivery stops, gallons in our business, and then all the different combinations that you can think of between those. So stops per hour, miles per stop, miles per gallon, all the relevant metrics that help drive the efficiency and the profitability of the company. So for the drivers themselves, they are often reviewing this with their manager. They don't actually have a live view of their metric from that day, pushed to them, but they do have those reviews, and then often become very interested as we run incentive programs to help drive productivity and get through those difficult times of the year when volume is really pushing hard.
And how's your strategy changed over the last few years?
Overall, the strategies, since we've now got ORTEC in play, we've got a lot more capability in the plan versus actual and completion of the route and sequence of the route. So that's definitely been some area of focus for us, along with on-time delivery. So I heard that mentioned earlier. That's critical for us as well, making sure that we're on time, not just efficient, but on time and efficient.
Yeah, I know. I think that's kind of a common theme in bulk. It's Peter's talked about that a lot. If you show up too early, then it ends up impacting the amount that you can deliver. So Yep.
Extra deliveries and hopefully happy customers.
Yeah. How much do each of you look at tank sizes and review tank sizes and make changes to tanks, like actually on the delivery to try to optimize that part of it?
I'll take it first. So I would say that that's super critical because you can have the best tools, the best technology. You can monitor it. You can have the best measurements. You could, but if you have customers potentially with undersized tanks, and your frequency of delivery is more frequent than it should be, it's certainly we've been able to see through ORTEC software and development through dashboards and so forth, where you can just see it. You can see that I'm delivering to this customer way too frequently. They're running through product much faster than they probably should be, and so right sizing a tank is always going to be critical to making sure that you get part of the logistics piece right.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, in our business, it's a little complicated at times related to, customers' property, a business's property,
Right.
what kind of constraints you run into, but absolutely needs to be reviewed for that type of improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with what Jeff and Peter are saying as well. We're trying to get as many tank monitors on our customer tanks as possible so we can see what their usage is and then adjust our routing accordingly and not try to go there too frequently. Our business is a little different. We primarily deliver to fleet trucks, so we do what's called in the industry as wet hosing. But many of those deliveries also have tanks, or we have specific tank customers as well. So we have a kind of a double-headed monster there.
Yeah. From a process standpoint, I think, Chris, you want to talk about this?
Sure. Yeah, as we kind of move from strategy to process, kind of dig a little bit deeper, want to kind of understand how each of your companies started assembling these KPIs and kind of what's the best timing that you see for them and potentially who uses them on that. So maybe Jeff, if you could kick us off on that.
Yep, I think I touched on it a bit. So, the assembling of these are really put together every night, overnight from the prior day's activity. So we're assembling them and then publishing them the next morning for the field operations management, the delivery coordinators, and the team that are building the routes. So those are the folks that are, the primary consumers of the reporting. And then that visibility, right, is just so critical, right? Like to be able to trend that out and see, yesterday something was out of line in this location, then that provides that leadership the ability to do more deep dives, identify what might be driving that. Is it customer related, driver related, all the different various elements of getting into the data. And it really it's got to be done quickly, or it does become really difficult to go back and say what happened, two Thursdays ago, at this location. When drivers are doing 14 to 16 stops a day, that could be 100 stops ago that you could be looking for some sort of, insight into. And so the timing is really critical to be able to make a real change on that.
Yeah, I hear you say that you're collecting every night. Is there a need to collect sooner than that or faster than that at this point within your organization?
You know what? So collecting the data for the reporting, I wouldn't say that's more important at this point, but we do have tools that provide managers to do like a live look into their day. So, what's the status of this particular route? They're currently at stop 6 out of 15, and they can provide, the oversight to their team at that point in time.
Gotcha. All right. Thanks, Jeff. Peter, maybe your insights from your company?
The assembling of measurements have come really a long way over the years, from data mining and just ad hoc requests and assembling data, and again crunching information and spreadsheets and Access and Excel, and it's come kind of full circle to where with cloud computing we're able to move it faster from our ERP, from a realization standpoint. Even with looking at solutions where we have telematics on board and getting real-time information, really up to the minute, right? So from a bulk distribution standpoint with telematics, you really have the ability to And then the frequency of what's the timing on that. There's some timing that we're pulling information and pushing it to a dashboard monthly. There's some measurements and KPIs it's weekly, but there could be, if you're monitoring your daily dispatch, you're looking at realization, you want real time, where's the truck. As we get into more of a kind of connected customer environment, where we're really providing updates and ETAs and so forth, the real-time realization becomes super critical. And do we need to go through who's using them and any level of that we need to touch on?
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great for further insights. Yep.
Yeah, so at Airgas, we have to be careful because there's data and everything. So for us, I think it's about being razor focused and really not trying to overwhelm the field and the frontline leadership with too many measurements and KPIs. If you ask someone to go monitor 20 measurements and KPIs, they're probably not going to get anything done.
Yep.
You have to be super laser focused. So when we talk about the end user and who that is used for, we already mentioned this. I think Andy and Jeff both mentioned, but is the measurement for the manager, is the measurement for the driver, is the measurement for the division president, right? It really kind of determines who actually is leveraging the reporting, the dashboards, based on what they're looking at and what it's customized to. So it really, an end user could be really anyone within the organization, but the level of the KPI, when you get down to the end user, has to be super focused.
Yep.
And just real quick, our drivers,
yeah, go ahead.
we do stand-ups. We have safety meetings every day. And so during those stand-ups and safety meetings, there's a high level of visibility to the coaching, the training that we have. But in terms of like having a live view of it in the cab of the truck or anything like that, we do not.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I was just going to make mention that you said earlier that Airgas is decentralized. Has there been any challenges with data analytics in that type of operating environment?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chris. I would say that in a decentralized environment where you've got lots of a matrix-driven organization with lots of local decision-making, everyone has a business analyst. So at a corporate level, our role and responsibility is to put forth that 3 to 5 year roadmap, create stability, and really kind of drive the standardization of the reporting. Not to say that we don't have business units out there building their own measurements, their own dashboards, and own KPIs. But from a corporate level, we see where a lot of our business units are leveraging our reporting to standardize their processes, whether it's yard time or whether it's idle time or whether we're looking at performance on out of route miles or whatever it may be. So but there are challenges there. That's a great point.
Yeah, so I just in that, just to see that, hey, corporate has this obligation to build so that each of the decentralized areas, regions, whatever locations can have the tools to improve, but each location potentially could do some additional things as well. So yeah, that makes sense. Andy, how about at Jacobus?
Yeah, I think my comments will mirror what Jeff and Peter have shared, but the way we assemble KPIs, we're using ORTEC and BizSpeed data that we bring into our own data warehouse and then create KPI calculations and visualizations in Power BI. We do this daily. Our business, as we service fleets, is primarily a second shift business when all their delivery trucks are in the yard. Although we do have customers that are continuously operating 24/7, so we're not hitting a static list of trucks. So the data is pulled together the following morning. So the overnight shift, we get it probably mid-morning, and then the dashboards are published soon after that. It's an all automated process. And our entire organization is using the dashboards. We have KPIs that are tailored to the executive team, to the manager team, and then the driver level metrics that the managers are going over with them on a daily basis. As mentioned earlier, we are in the process of developing a real-time performance tracking app on the driver's handheld. So when they go scan the customer tank, they can see kind of how they're tracking with the volume as they progress through the delivery. So we're excited to get that launched here soon. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of how we go about things
Excellent.
from a process standpoint.
Maybe just a follow-up question. At Jacobus, I know we've been working together and you've been using a lot of data analytics.
Yep.
Was there any learnings from maybe year 1 to year 3 that from using data analytics, when you actually looked at the data and saw it, there were potentially some learnings there that helped you to go maybe to the next level or the next step, and maybe describe what that was like?
Yeah, the granularity of the data that's available to us is far surpassed what we had. So we can see, what the driver is doing at the stop, or kind of predicting or taking not a good guess, but an educated guess based on the data of what the driver did at the stop. And you can see how much time it's supposed to take them. We look at delivery efficiency versus, what they're pumping in the time that they're there. So you can see really how much inefficiency there is. I'm sad to report. So that has been eye-opening. We knew that going into it, but really the data that's available now through ORTEC and BizSpeed is really put some power behind those assumptions. And really, if you present the driver with the facts, I mean, they can't really, they can still come up with excuses, I guess, but the facts are the facts. So
Yeah.
it's really been able to have us be more effective in leading our drivers, and the drivers know that we're collecting the data. And I mean, human nature is sometimes that they'll find other ways to get their hours in, so to speak. But it's really been a tremendous evolution in really understanding what the drivers are doing at their stops.
Yeah,
Or
that's a good
between
one.
the stops. I mean, I don't know if it was Peter or Jeff that mentioned how important it is for sequencing. So we have they're supposed to do their route in a certain sequence, and a lot of times they will not do that. So we can call those things out. On-time route start. Also, all the on-time deliveries to the customers depend on them starting their route on time. And you wouldn't think that would be a challenge, but it is. So, it's just so much data that we're now able to use to guide and coach our drivers on a regular basis, on a very timely basis.
Yeah, those are some good learnings. Jeff, are there any other recommendations for the process or learnings that you would like to call out?
I think maybe the couple learnings that we've learned over the years is really the completion of the prior day's route and what impact that has on your future metrics, right? Whether that's miles or on-time delivery. If it's missed from the prior day, that's bound to create some churn in the things that you're trying to accomplish in your route build. So yeah, I think that's definitely been something that we learned quite a bit about. And I think that, overall, just making sure that you've got alignment on what those metrics are that you're going to push with the organization, and make sure you also understand what the unintended consequences of possibly a direction in that way will take you. So that, as a leadership team, all the way down to the driver, you can be prepared for, moving that metric forward and
Yeah,
align that that's the right metric to really go after and have that kind of change management around.
Yeah, good advice. And before we move to the next slide, maybe Peter, if you've got one recommendation that you've taken away from this process in the last couple of years that you could share.
Well, I would just say I've kind of touched on it already on a few different topics here, but kind of moving your assembly from a manual process to where it's an automated process, and you're building out data models, and you've got more. When you're handling large sums of data, it can be, and you're doing it manually. We've all heard the proverbial noise in the data. I think it's anytime you can automate the process and keep the hands off of it, I think that's better. There's one source of truth there. But sometimes that can be difficult if you're having to manually extract information and handle information and building out your report. So there's a lot of value add to reducing the amount of noise that you have in that data when you're able to scale to a more of a cloud computing process.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thanks.
As you grow, it's funny because we will send one of the benefits from a routing perspective from ORTEC is that you don't have to have all the drivers show up at 6 a.m. right? If they're some may need to not start until 6:45 or whatever, and we'll send an email out that tells the driver when their trip is supposed to start, as well as kind of what the orders are. We ended up making some changes in the mobile app because we had customers that weren't doing that, and we'd have drivers that would end their trip at 4 today and start their trip for tomorrow, just so they could see what the orders were on the trip. It's kind of what you're talking about, Jeff, and drivers don't always realize, hey, you have to end the trip because otherwise your metrics all look off, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
It looks like
Yeah.
it takes a while to kind of tune that process. So yeah, we put things in place to fix that. So you can say, kind of the window of when they can start a trip. So they can't start tomorrow's trip at 4 p.m. today. So
I will say, in just, hitting up ORTEC here, that with our ORTEC solution, OIR, we have the ability to actually email the driver their route for the next day. So that they actually get an email that shows them, their stops, the order. That was an add-on that we created with OIR.
yeah.
They don't have to log back in to actually see it. They get the email.
Yeah, that ends up being a big deal because then you don't have everybody showing up at 6, like I said, and you get an extra 20 minutes of coffee talk that you didn't really need. So, you can tune all that pretty well. So the last area is technologies. So just kind of an overview in terms of what technologies you use. And I think there was a question about maybe somewhat on the process side, but just to understand, what data you're getting from ORTEC and what data you're getting from the mobile. So Andy, you want to talk about the technologies that you're using and you have in place?
Sure, absolutely. So we have an integrated solution with ORTEC. ORTEC provides the planning platform called OIR, and we have BizSpeed providing the actual delivery data. Both of these data elements land in ORTEC's data portal, or they call it big data portal. So then we pull that data into our own data warehouse and then visualize it using Power BI. Some of the integration challenges, it's a great solution. The combination of ORTEC and BizSpeed has worked phenomenally for our company, and we're light years of where we thought we'd be at this point. So it's been great, but there are some challenges with the duality of the systems. One of those areas is it sometimes complicates root cause analysis for any data issues that we might be experiencing. So if we're seeing some anomaly in the data or missing data, we have to kind of initially try to figure out what the source of that problem is, and sometimes we can be going back to both teams to figure out where the issue lies, but that doesn't happen that often. So but overall, we're really happy with the harmony that both platforms provide.
And you
And
use
as
you use Power BI. That's
yeah,
kind
we
of your
do.
main,
Yep.
that's your main platform for analytics.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, ORTEC and BizSpeed both have been wonderful in creating special data sets for us to reconcile our routes. The other thing about having an automated platform is because we're delivering to many customers, sometimes, and we're using a Wi-Fi connected handheld, sometimes the Wi-Fi connectivity is lost, and then some of the gallons aren't captured automatically. So we have a route reconciliation team in our back office that kind of tracks those missing gallons and then adds them to the route. So having an automated data warehouse and dashboard allows those updated numbers to be refreshed automatically. I couldn't imagine doing this in Excel. And we didn't. We just statically took what was available to us at the time we pulled the data before we had this. So that's been a great development. Dashboards are refreshed daily, as mentioned earlier. So I think we're definitely on the right path to really being able to utilize our data daily to make good, actionable decisions.
And do most people log on and use Power BI, or are you doing things through report emails, or what's?
Yep. Nope. The people log on to Power BI. We have workspace Power BI workspaces available to them, links that they save to their favorites in their web browser, and they're just in the habit of going and logging in at a certain time every day or throughout the day as they have time for their analysis. So it's instead of pushing out tons of data with huge files, it's been, go and see, go and look, and really it helps to have them share some of the accountability for their analysis and investigation, and they have to go out and look at it, and we're not just gonna send these huge files via email.
How about you, Peter? What's the technology overview for Airgas?
So for our bulk operation, micro bulk operation, we're leveraging OIR as well for ORTEC. And again, it's the integration challenges for us has been really around more of the integrity of the data, right? So standing up multiple different systems that may not be fully integrated. If your telemetry is not integrated with your ERP, if your equipment master is not fully integrated with your OIR, just the challenges there really have been just synchronizing and harmonizing all of the data to make sure that there's no misses. We have our readings from telemetry, and we don't have a miss from the connectivity with a server or a middleware or anything like that. That's kind of been our challenge as far as we're not using BizSpeed, but that's only because prior to us launching this project with ORTEC and OIR, we had our own mobile device. Airgas took a position many years ago where we went to a paperless environment, and as part of that, we built a proprietary system that we chose to leverage with OIR. But in terms of integration challenges, I would say, like anything else, there's change with change management, whether it's planners, dispatchers, managers, putting a new piece of technology in place can come with challenges just from the standpoint of, especially if you have a tenured operator, right? Whether it's a driver, a planner, dispatcher, manager, they've been doing it this way for the last decade or longer, and now you're integrating new technology. So there are some challenges there, but where we share our KPIs, we have Google Sites. So from a department standpoint, it is more of a a pull versus a push mentality, where we want to drive. If we built the right dashboards, the right analytics, the right visual aids, people will use the tool. And from a Power BI standpoint, we have analytics around that, so we know who's touching, the report, who's
Right.
going into the report.
Right.
We also have a system in place where if a user didn't go into Power BI within 30 days, they have to request a new license.
Oh, I
Oh,
like that.
interesting.
I like that.
So right away that somebody
Yep.
hasn't been looking at something.
Yeah,
for
that's
a month.
great.
Hey,
And
Peter,
Jeff-
do you have any processes in place when you say data integrity? Do you have any things that you look at for outliers and how to correct that data?
Well, I would say that we've come a long way in our path, right, in terms of understanding and learning the tool, the system. Whether it's OJT, we've really have gotten to a point where maybe we were doing things one way, and now we know how to do it a little bit differently. That makes it a little bit less challenging in trying to, but I don't know that there's any one particular. We like to believe that our ERP is our one source of truth. But you still have to integrate multiple systems into that one source of truth. So it can become a challenge. And there's not really a simple or easy way to do a cross-reference on, my tank IDs and my BAM solution, my telemetry solution are different than my tank IDs and my equipment master. So it is still a bit of a challenge and a little bit arduous when it comes to working through the details. But the more you're involved in it, the more you're engaged in it, the easier it is to kind of harmonize it, synchronize
I think that's just a great point to make for those that are on this call looking to take up some data analytics, to really consider all the different data sources and how you harmonize those, making sure across all the platforms that they do match. So good point. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jeff, what about the AmeriGas side from technologies? What are you doing?
Yeah. So very similar to Peter, we've also got our own mobile app that was homegrown many years ago before we had the ORTEC solution. So our ERP is our system of record. It feeds ORTEC the orders that need to be delivered. ORTEC obviously is building the routes, and that pushes back into our ERP. That feeds our mobile app. The mobile app will send confirmation of delivery back to ORTEC and back to our ERP to confirm the transaction's complete. And then we're using our ERP and our data warehouse, some click solutions on top of that business intelligence platform to create those dashboards. So that's kind of the flow of order generation all the way out through our reporting. So
and for accessing that, are people, is it same thing where you let people log on, or do you push the data out more from a email standpoint?
It's mostly self-serve, but depending on the priority of the given metric or the time of year, there's also some push going on just to make sure things are front and center if that's the direction of what we need to do at that point in the year.
Got it.
Yeah.
We had one question that wasn't answered. So I guess if we go kind of, somebody had asked, can you restate your 3 KPIs? So if you want to go through that quickly, each one of you, what you think your top 3 KPIs are, or things that people should look at. Andy?
Yep, sure. Mine was net revenue per driver hour, delivery wages per gallon delivered, and travel hours per delivery.
Peter?
Ours is would be for a bulk micro bulk operation would be utilization per asset based on day and time, availability of day and time, and then the second one would be probably on time performance. Are we delivering too early, or are we delivering too late? So we're measuring that to make sure that we're not just top loading but that we're making runs where we're delivering, a lot of product for that run. So we're trying to maximize that. And then distance. We're calculating. We want to focus on our planned miles and actual miles to make sure that we optimize that and reduce any out or out miles.
Perfect. And what about you, Jeff?
Yeah, for us, it's on-time delivery for the customer, miles per stop and stops per hour. And stops per vehicle hour, basically how long the driver's in the vehicle.
Yeah, because you guys you can have a lot of stops for a trip, right? I mean, you could end up having 25 or 30 sometimes, I think, right?
Yeah, in the more dense locations, that's possible.
Yeah. So, well, that's we're coming up to the top of the hour. So if there's any closing questions, if somebody wants to ask from a Q&A standpoint, I think we've answered all of those. Anybody has any other ones? Ask now, please. I don't need Chris Tuttle answered that. So this has been awesome. Thanks for doing it. We appreciate each one of you. Doing it. This is, again, part 2 of a 3-part series, and it's really just a chance for us to ask questions and see what the best practices are. And we certainly appreciate you guys doing this, and look forward to the next one, which is in June. So that's it. We will record this, or did record this, so we'll share the recording with folks that logged on afterwards. So thanks.
That's great. Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
everybody.
Thanks
Yeah.
for doing
Thanks,
it.
guys.
Thanks, everyone.